What's going on, guys, and welcome back to part 6 of my Journey to Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore series. Today I am going to be talking about Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the 6th installment in the Harry Potter film series, and one that is not my favorite, but as with all of these films, there are several things that I like about it, so we may as well start with those. Right off the bat, I really do love how this film feels like the end to the transitional phase of the Harry Potter series. What I mean by that is that I like to look at the Harry Potter series as if it is made up of several different phases. The first phase consists of the first 3 films, where the tone is mostly consistently childlike and whimsical, with some darker elements being introduced in the 3rd film. From the beginning of Goblet of Fire until the end of Half-Blood Prince, the tone is much darker, but the characters within the story are still trying to cling on to that childlike sense that was present in the first 3 films. Half-Blood Prince is the most devoid of humor and levity of the first 6 films, so that by the time you get to the beginning of Deathly Hallows, all of those childlike and whimsical elements are almost completely gone. You can see that through the direction. The Quidditch pitch, something that was so bright and colorful in the first few films, is now dark and drab and devoid of color, showing the dark period that the wizarding world is now in. Something I figured I may as well mention about this film that also went for the prior film as well, but that I just forgot to mention, is the score by Nicholas Hooper, which I actually feel is the best, at least since John Williams' work on the first 3 films. I didn't mention this in my Goblet of Fire review a few weeks back, but I actually feel the score for that film by Patrick Doyle may be the worst of the Harry Potter series. If you were to ask me to identify a single track of music from that film, I wouldn't be able to because it's so forgettable. But Nicholas Hooper's score adds so much to both Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince. One of my favorite tracks from him plays during the assault on the burrow scene, which is one of my favorites in the film. The tension building during it is fantastic as the characters pursue the Death Eaters into the swamp surrounding the burrow and fend them off while not actually being able to see where they are because they're using the reeds as cover, and it all climaxes in them burning down the burrow. But what's hilarious about it is that it serves no purpose in the narrative. The Death Eaters just swoop in, attack some people, burn down the burrow, and leave. I guess they just wanted to harass the Weasleys, but it's not like they went there with the intention of taking out one of the most significant members of the Order of the Phoenix. They just attacked them for no reason. They didn't even kill anyone. It has no impact on the story going forward, but I think it's a really good scene, and for some reason, when I think of this film, that scene is the first thing that comes to mind. Draco is also given a considerable amount of depth in this film, which is very much appreciated and was really required after he was mostly absent from the 3 prior films, outside of showing up in a few scenes to say some snarky, rude remark. But he's really up front and center in this film, as he has been tasked by Voldemort to take out Dumbledore, and you see him in a different light outside of being the cliché bully. You see that he's no different than anyone else. He's really just a scared kid because he has such tremendous pressure put on him, as Voldemort has essentially threatened to kill him if he doesn't follow through with the job. And everything they do with him in this film, I feel, is fantastic. I love the mystery surrounding what he's doing with the Vanishing Cabinet in the Room of Requirement. There are subtle pieces of information that are given to Harry and you as the audience throughout the film, and you are slowly able to piece together what he's trying to do with the Vanishing Cabinet. It's really well executed, in my opinion. And as per usual with this series, the new character really does steal the show. In this case, that character is Horace Slughorn, portrayed by Jim Broadbent. And he's hilarious. I mean, just watch some of these scenes.
Good to see you, Wallenby.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Farewell, Aragog.
Not only does he add a lot of much-needed levity to the film, but he also has a great character arc. And that's something I can't say about a lot of other new characters in Potter films. In the past Potter films, new characters were typically carried by the performances of the actors portraying them, but in this film, Slughorn's character arc is actually quite poignant. In the beginning, he's portrayed as a teacher who has an immense amount of respect for students who show tremendous talent, And we learn that that is because they step up, and that he as a person is rather unwilling to step up. Throughout the film, he's unwilling to give Harry his memory of when he revealed to Tom Riddle the existence of Horcruxes, and that is really because he blames himself for what happened with Tom Riddle and for the creation of Voldemort. Harry tells him that he needs to be brave like his mother was, one of Slughorn's most prized pupils, and in the end he does give Harry his memory, despite how afraid he is of the impact it may have on his life. He still does step up, and I think that's not only a great conclusion to his character arc, but a great message in general. I also feel like the third act of this film is honestly so good that it makes the rest of it pale by comparison. It has a certain amount of energy to it that I feel was lacking from the rest of the film. The crystal cave scene is fantastic. The lighting and atmosphere on display is unlike anything else in the film. I feel Michael Gambon is really at his best since Prisoner of Azkaban, and everything surrounding him and Severus, with Severus eventually having to kill him upon his command, is extremely powerful, especially considering the context that Deathly Hallows Part 2 adds to their relationship. That is about all of the positives I have to say about this film. There were some very large positives. On the flip side, there are also some very large negatives. This film has a strange issue of delivering exposition in a rather lazy manner, which is meant to explain things that were not naturally implemented into the story. For example, at the beginning, we are shown Ginny and Dean Thomas kissing in the Three Broomsticks, and then a few scenes later, Hermione tells us that she and Dean have been having relationship issues, despite the fact that they never showed us that. I guess it's been happening off-screen. Harry also goes to visit Dumbledore in his office at the beginning of the film, and Dumbledore asks Harry if he and Hermione are romantically involved, to which he says no, but Dumbledore says that Harry has been spending an abnormal amount of time with Hermione, which also wasn't shown to the audience because they hadn't really interacted in any capacity before that scene, so it doesn't make a lot of sense in context. Hermione also tells us that there's this new girl, Romilda Vane, who's into Harry, despite the fact that she had never been a pre-established character before that point, and she only really exists to be a plot device so that Ron can get poisoned later in the film. It also feels like there's some scenes that were dragged out longer than was necessary. For example, at the beginning of the film, once Luna finds Harry on the Hogwarts Express, we are shown Draco arguing over whether or not he should be allowed to take his father's cane into Hogwarts, and you may say, oh, he wants to take his father's cane into Hogwarts because his father's wand is disguised as a cane, as had been established in the prior films. But no, he doesn't use his father's wand in any capacity during the film, so that scene just feels like it was dragged out unnecessarily. And once they arrive at Hogwarts, Dumbledore gives this rather dark speech where he essentially says that life sucks and evil is everywhere. Thanks, dude, we already knew that, but it's good that you made us more depressed than we already were. And the fact that the creative team on this film really didn't know what to prioritize with it is very detrimental to it overall, because they cut out what I, and I'm sure many others, believe to be the highlight of the book, and that was the whole backstory surrounding Tom Riddle and the Gaunt family. In the book, you learn about the Gaunt family and how the ring that Tom Riddle owns belonged to his father, who he hated, and what his life was like as a child, strengthening his connection to Harry, solidifying how they are thematic opposites. But all we get in the film is Tom Riddle fondling the ring in the Slughorn memory scene, and then Dumbledore tells Harry that he destroyed it at some point off screen. That's it. Nothing that I just described takes place in the film. It's all absent, and that sucks. This film also highlights how bad of a job they did establishing the relationship between Harry and Ginny, and just Ginny's character in general. She made very brief appearances in the prior films, but even when she did appear, they didn't give her any defining character traits. She's a complete blank slate in these films, and in this film, Harry describes to Ron all of the traits that he associates with Ginny, but we've never seen her display any of those traits. That's not like her in the books at all. She was a very spunky and likable character in the books, but she has no personality in the film series, and they've done a terrible job of establishing their relationship outside of some hints that she liked him in the prior films, so they rush their romance into this film with these rather awkward scenes where she's feeding him a cupcake or tying his shoes or kissing him with his eyes closed and walking away in the room of requirement. All of these very awkward scenes, and that's why I don't blame people who have only seen the films for thinking that Harry and Hermione are a better match, because he and Hermione interact more than any other characters in the film series, even than him and Ron. When they interact, they feel like friends, and there's a real feeling of chemistry between them, which is completely lacking between Harry and Ginny. Every scene between them feels so awkward and forced. That's nothing against the actress Bonnie Wright who portrays the character, but I feel like they did her character such a disservice in these films. The last thing I will say about this film is that it feels rather lacking in energy, and the direction feels very flat compared to the past few films, which may have been an intentional choice on the part of David Yates to make this film feel like the dark point in the wizarding world that it is. But at the same time, it's so slow until the third act rolls around and everything kicks into high gear, and even the final scene feels really lame. Harry just tells Hermione that he found out the locket was a fake off-screen. We don't get to see his reaction to the fact that Dumbledore's sacrifice to retrieve the locket was in vain because it ended up being a fake. Harry just tells us that he discovered this information off-screen, and that's very lame in my opinion. With all of that said, that's about all I have to say about Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. It's certainly not one of my favorite Harry Potter films, and while there are some great things about it, I don't feel like it quite lives up to the sum of its parts. But you guys, please let me know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Just whatever your thoughts are, please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. Bye.